And finally, we get to the main event of the evening, Rafael dos Anjos versus Kevin Lee, the welterweight main event. To start with, I guess the thing to mention was what Kevin Lee mentioned about the weigh-ins. So Kevin Lee, in the promotion for this fight, and I thought it was a great move on his part, was discussing the idea and toying with the idea of weighing in at 165 pounds. So rather than weighing in at 170, which is the legal limit for that weight class, he decided he was going to weigh in at 165 to make a statement to the UFC and to Dana White about the need and for a 165 division. Change 170, 175, have a 10-pound weight gap between each one. In interviews, he discussed that he had spoke with RDA's team and RDA basically said, look, I'm making 170. I'm focused on the fight. I'm not here to do that. It was interesting to see whether or not Kevin Lee would have just done it himself, just for a personal point of view and making a statement. He chose not to. Both fighters made weight. Let's move on and let's get to the fight at hand. A really good fight. A really, really good fight. Real back and forth. Great scrambles, great, just multiple attempts on both guys in terms of the submissions and looking and trying to achieve the superior position. Some great exchanges in the striking. I mean, coming into the fourth round where this fight was finished, it was a very even matchup. I would say RDA was getting the better of him more often than not. Kevin started with extreme high pace, high pressure, which in fairness to him, he maintained for the 3 rounds. Definitely began to show signs of fatigue in the fourth. And I think that finally is what landed him in that underarm choke that he ended up being submitted with in the fourth. Solid performance from both guys. You know, the initial response on social media to Kevin Lee was that he's overhyped and overrated, but I think he put in a great performance. I think he did a great fight. He didn't get away with the result that he wanted to, but when you look at the exchanges that went on in that fight, there were multiple occasions where Kevin Lee could have got the submission and could have taken the win. It just happened to be RDA's night. RDA, he showed his tenure. He showed that the experience that he has comes into play in these big fights and in these big moments. He remained calm when he was put into bad situations and into bad positions. He remained composed. He dealt with the storm that Kevin Lee brought at the start, and he matched him technique for technique all the way across. But what he did that I don't think Kevin did is that he reserved a bit back for those championship rounds. The ones that RDA seems to have a lot more experience with in terms of being there and how to perform in that space. He had a bit more kept behind and he went in a bit calmer and a bit more reserved. And it was that I felt that made the difference in that later round where he managed to score and win that fantastic submission victory. And really well deserved. RDA has just, if you look at the run of fights he has just had the toughest time. Chael Sonnen always says, oh, who did RDA piss off at the UFC to always get these fights that he does? He's a true contender, and I'm glad to see him now in title contention. He's in a run at that division at the top end of that pool. So big well done to him for that one. Overall, I thought Rochester was a great card. I think it really, really did perform and show, you know, these smaller cards where you may only recognize 1 or 2 names on the entire main card. It doesn't mean that you're not going to get a great night of fights. And if you dig a little bit deeper, it also doesn't mean that there's not some great stories to unfold and kind of get behind these fighters. It's also really interesting to see what's going on in that top 15 part. So, we're all caring about who's in the top 5. We all want to know who's getting the next title shot at every weight category. But we have to keep in mind that there's other guys and gals in these pools and they're making their way up and they're the future stars of these divisions. And it's trying to work out who's going to be the next star, who's going to be the next equivalent to a Conor McGregor.